Good evening, everyone, and welcome to NerD TopiC. You know, everybody out there has a topic or a subject, maybe even a full-out profession that they just get extra nerdy about. Well, I want to know what that topic is, and I want to talk about it. Tonight, I am joined by three gentlemen, sort of faces of forward-thinking theater. So I suppose this is NerD TopiC Theater with a little mustache twirl. But thanks for being here, you guys. Thanks for making time, and it's going to be nice talking to you about the world of theater. Cheers, yeah. Let's just go around, let the audience know who we are and who we're talking to. To my right, we have David White. Hi, David.
Hello. Yeah, David Lee White, and I'm primarily a playwright now, although I've spent several years as an actor, so I still do that occasionally, mainly in my solo show work, but primarily I'm a playwright at the moment.
Okay. Where are you tuning in from?
Oh, sorry. I'm in Bordentown, New Jersey. Okay. And I do a lot of I'm kind of halfway between Philadelphia and New York. So when there's not a pandemic, it's a good location to be.
Nice. Nice. Bottom corner, Greg Decandia.
Hello. Thanks for having me on, Pete. Appreciate it. I consider myself a artistic archivist and a creative collaborator or collager. And what that basically means is I do a hodgepodge of different things. I'm the executive director and founder of Ignition Arts. We're in our 20th season right now. And we do everything from developing projects to podcasts and personal development. So a little bit of everything, and just finished a 10-year at Oklahoma City University as the head of their BA Theater and Performance program, which is a devising degree. So that's another hat that I've been wearing.
Wonderful.
Oh, and I'm coming in from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Woo woo.
Woo. Philly.
Mike Wiley, hello. How are you, buddy?
Pretty good, my man. Thanks very much for having me on. I appreciate it, and it's great to meet David and you. And I've been working with and knowing Greg here for a few years. We both finished at the same MFA program here in North Carolina, Chapel Hill, as a matter of fact. And I am a solo actor predominantly. I direct, I write, but my daily bread, my bread and butter, all of the ways that I make my living predominantly come from my own writing of my solo plays and then touring those around the country.
Fantastic. Well, welcome all. I look forward to talking more. I guess I'd like to begin with kind of like, oh no, we lost Greg. Hopefully he'll come back in a moment.
That's crazy.
You can start with us.
Totally, yeah. You guys didn't realize this was like a reduction show, like, wrong answer, you're out. You know?
Something interesting.
That's right, yeah. So in the, it sounds corny saying like the world of theater, because I'm sure it's much more diverse and not as easily like encapsulated. But I know that you all have in common that you perform one-man shows. Is that your baby? I mean, are you so much to the extent that is what you would prefer, and even possibly like not accept an offer to do something because you prefer to do a one-man act or write a one-man act or and such? Weird question, but so where are you most home? Where do you find yourself most comfortable? Let's start with Mike.
Yeah, that's an awesome question, man. I think that I am most comfortable doing solo work, specifically writing my own solo work, not directing myself or anything like that. I typically find a director that and I've had 3 or 4 over the last 20 some years, but I typically find a director that I love working with and I stick with them. But I enjoy doing the solo work because it's an opportunity to bring out some comedy, some drama, some history. I get to go deeper into the work, into the performance, bring out as much truth in the characters I possibly can. And it truly does work for me. Ensemble work is fun, and when I get an opportunity to do it, I take that opportunity sometimes, depending on my tour schedule.
Mm-hmm. Does just pause, hold that thought 1 second. I'm going to let Greg back in. back.
And
Greg,
sideways again.
The Dutch angle. Nice.
Better than the Dutch oven.
I only just thought of that as you were saying it, Mike. When you have a one-man show, like decidedly one-man show, and potentially even you wrote the show, you still bring in a director to direct and don't just assume that you would be the director?
Absolutely. Because a director, you know, it's not cliche to say a director is another set of eyes to show you and talk to you about, you know, your blind spots, as it were, in the, not just in the performing, but also in the writing, right? And for me, my playwright hat is much more ambitious than my acting hat.
Okay.
And so therefore I'll have a director that will, I've had directors say, the playwright wrote this, asking the actor to do this. I know I was being kind of ambitious with when I wrote that. Okay, well, we're still going to do it. So yeah, so there are scenes in my own solo work where I dance with myself, or, you know, there's a lot that a director brings to the table that you might not be thinking as an actor.
David, sort of same question. Where are you most comfortable with or prefer, or maybe even just find yourself doing the most?
You know, I think that writing probably, but I'm not. I don't know. I'm not the kind of writer that spends a lot of time by myself in isolation writing. I mean, I do that obviously, but I like it once I have a draft done and I'm in a rehearsal room with a lot of actors. I tend to get a lot of input from acting ensembles, from collaborators. I think that that's a really important part of my process. So that's my favorite part of it.
Sure.
My solo show, while I do it and I love it, and I'm glad I did it, I don't know that I'll ever do another one. I just have one. And it's autobiographical, and I've been doing it for a number of years now, and it's starting to oop me out a little bit. Like, it's so personal, and I've now done it so many times, and I've been in the talkbacks, and I've answered the really personal questions, and I'm not sure how many more years I'll do it, but I'm glad I did it. It was one of those things I always wanted to do, so it has been very rewarding, you know, for that reason.
It sounds like the kind of thing that will also inform everything else, whether it's another one-man show or not. Is it just kind of like a good thing to have in your bag in a way?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's and the good thing about it, you can really, it's just you can put it up. I mean, you're like if you go to a producer, it's a cheap date. You know, you bring it, you pack the stuff in your car, you drive it to the thing, you got the green room all to yourself. Like,
Nice.
You know, so I think it's an attractive thing for theater producers sometimes.
Greg, same question. Where are you most at home at, even though you are, how did you put it? A collager? I like that.
Yeah, I think it is, you know, creating situations, you know, creatively putting things together. That's where I call myself a creative collager. So putting a podcast together, putting a play together, putting together a community organizing event or something like that, you know, and having multiple people involved. I like to have large ensemble based creations. So I think that's where I'm most comfortable. But I guess also I love being on stage too. I think I feel that's what I have the most training in. So I think that's where I feel the most at home, but I think the most rewarding is that creative collaging stuff that I do. And I'm going to shout out Panther Hollow from David Lee White, who didn't name the show. And you know, I have one solo show as well, Silhouettes of Service, which is actually inspired by Mike, who's actually quite prolific at solo work. So he was actually an inspiration, and I was lucky enough to share the same festival when I was workshopping this piece in North Carolina at UNC. So yeah.
Mike, what would be where would you guide people or direct people towards if they wanted to see the one-man show that you felt best represented to you or was the most important?
Oh gosh, that's a really great question as well. So the first play that I wrote, okay, so the first play that I wrote was solo, and I wrote it in 1999, and it's about Henry Box Brown, slave who mailed himself to freedom, right? Mailed himself from Richmond
To Philadelphia.
to Philadelphia, to Philly, right? And I sent it off to the National Black Theater Festival, and they accepted it. And that following year, I started. It was produced at a theater in Durham, North Carolina. Right. Funny story with that is this was a theater called Man Bites Dog Theater, and they're known nationally and were known nationally for producing plays about the lives of and the intricacies of the LGBTQ community, right? And were certainly cutting edge back then in '99. And so my buddy, who was also directing my show, was on a walk with another friend, and friend says, "Hey, so tell me about this this show you're directing." He says, "Well, it's a play about a slave who mailed himself in the box, and you're doing it at Man Bites. Oh, cool. Is it a gay slave?" So you know, you just you work not to get pigeonholed, while at the same time you work in the place that offers you the especially in the beginning, you work in the place that offers you the space, right? And so I would say, you know, if you can check out One Noble Journey, and I have 8 solo shows. So I'm really committed to the solo, or I stink and nobody wants to work with me. But the point is that was the first one, and right, your first is always going to be your baby. So
Yeah.
So that's my first, and I would say that's a real encapsulation of who I am as a person.
We're going to leave a link or definitely drop the name throughout the episode to make sure people find that. And I'm going to dive deep and watch as well. So David, have you ever had a scenario where, you know, maybe your vision as a playwright, and, you know, I realize halfway as I'm asking all these questions that I don't mean to put anybody in a position to suggest that one thing is better or they enjoyed somebody better. I don't mean to have that kind of contention in any of this at all. That so, but you know, invariably, some of us we've all probably come up with scenarios or been in situations where it's just like grinding and people are butting heads, and you know, different. You know, we're all, you know, we want our baby the right way, or you know, the vision just isn't exactly how we like, or the mood. David, have you ever had a situation like that where you had to compromise more than you wanted to, or maybe even the opposite, where the people were bringing so much that it turned it into something else, but it was for the better? You know, pretty broad-based question, but
Yeah, no, that second one probably has happened more often to me. I'm really not very precious with my writing. I think as I've gotten older, maybe I've gotten a little more precious, but I think that I'm pretty open to a lot of collaboration as long as the spirit remains the same. The more I work on this kind of stuff, the more concerned I am about the core of the work staying strong throughout any kind of collaborative process. You know, so I used to get really hung up on, oh, they're not saying that line right, or you know, that's not landing right, and that's not. And I think there's only so much you can control, right?
Yeah.
And because I've certainly been in situations where, you know, I was like, well, that, you know, it could have been a little bit funnier, that could a little bit, but I'm not in control.
Yeah.
So what I focus now on, particularly because, you know, a lot of people like the writer to zip it, right, and stay quiet. But I'm very interested in maintaining the spine, you know, the kind of emotional, spiritual core of the piece, whether it's a musical or a play or something like that. Because I think that if that remains, people can forgive just about anything else. You know what I mean? They can forgive a performance that maybe isn't quite as strong or something like that. But it's difficult to maintain, you know, aside from, excuse me.
No worries.
Um, But so yeah, I'm more interested in that.
Yeah. It's funny because theater to me seems to have the most leeway in the sense that it can be very introspective, it could be very psychological, be very humorous, it could border on the grade of musicals that are, intentionally corny and ribby and twitchy and stuff, or winky, and then it could really be like overly wrought with like just like, oh my god, this is like deep and maybe even more deep than I wanted for a Friday night or a Sunday matinee,
Right,
but
right.
so it's interesting to me to think of what the spine or the soul of a piece would be, given the fact that it has all of that range anyway. Like horror in film has a little bit of range, but there's only so many things you can get away with before it's not horror anymore.
Right, right.
So Greg, same question, but with an added little thing in there. Is there any difficulty being somebody who, in a sense, as you're saying, you're a coordinator in a way, creative coordinator? Is there ever a point where it's like, oh, I'm not allowed to really give my creative advice on this? Like, there's a point where you have to step back, or?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's opening night, really. At some point you need to step away and let it have a life of its own. And I think that really all comes down to trust. And so you just got to trust the people that you've brought into the room, and the people that have curated the experience the entire way. So yeah, I think it has to do with trust. And sometimes when that trust gets lost, people get hurt. And I guess that would be if to look at a negative time that happened. I was in a production that literally during Tech Week, there were 8 injury reports. And so there was just a lot of just physical unsafety in the production. So we as a cast kind of just like bonded together, and we're like, we're going to buckle down, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it safely and take care of each other. And I think there may have been a couple of more injuries throughout the run, but they certainly went down a little bit. But we kind of made a stand together to be like, we need to physically take care of ourselves. So I guess that was a little cast revolt that happened, but not revolt, more of a bonding together to protect ourselves. So
was this Mamma Mia, Greg? You can tell us.
No. It wasn't.
Was this Spider-Man?
Mamma Mia, I will play one of those dads for the rest of my life. I would be more than happy. Anyone who wants to cast me in Mamma Mia, best tracks ever.
Truly.
Yeah. Thank you, Lyric Theater. Yeah,
agreed.
Nice. Mike, so as a man who's done 8 one-man shows, if there's difficulty between you and another cast member, it's just you and yourself.
Right.
All the voices.
Boy, you did that terrible tonight. Hope you're drinking later. No, I mean, but around 2010, I started writing ensemble work, basically because I got commissioned to, and so I started writing more ensemble pieces, and one of the most interesting experiences I had was at we'll say a major regional theater in the country, right? Major well-known regional theater in the country. I went to the first few rehearsals and I was like, all right. They got this. This is going to be awesome. I can't wait to come back and see this damn thing. So, I come back here to North Carolina, and then I go back a month or so later, and I'm sitting in like first or second preview, and the halfway through, I'm like, what the is this? What is somebody pranking me? What is so? But then I had to go to the artistic director, who was a friend, and say, look, I have some issues, and he did too, but he felt it was odd because he felt it was the playwright who should say something to the director. Oddly enough, he said, why don't you say what you say? Because I agree, but you say it. So that was interesting to have to go there. But to go back to what you were saying earlier, David, you know, as long as the spine of it is there, and with a few nudges here and there, the spine was there. Opening night came, and you know, people are holding each other and crying and hugging, and you know, audience members, and so I remember looking around and going, okay, the spine of it was there. It was there, you know, through all of whatever, but it was there. So trust in the work, I guess, is what we're agreeing on there.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel the buzz of like, so, you know, let's say I go to see a show, maybe I don't even know much about it because it's, you know, a off-Broadway production, or it's just something that people are talking about, but I don't read too much on it. I want to go in surprised. You get there and you see, like, you know, the objects on stage and there's a chair, and you're just like, you know, clearly that's going to be a major part of this, but it could be somebody's torture scene. This could be somebody, you know, like at a school or at work, you know, just like this blank, vague, but mysterious thing. Is any of that there for you? Like, can you like flip your eye to be an audience member and a performer or a writer at the same time? Like, or is it just, oh, we're getting all the magic, you guys are doing all the work? David, you want to start? Is that a vague question, or?
No, I actually, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, no, I think I decided pretty early on when I was in grad school that if I wanted to continue enjoying theater, I needed to figure out a way to do that. And so I would say, first of all, even when I was working full time at the theater as an associate artistic director and having to see theater all the time, I really tried to find something to engage in about every production that was special. That was, you know, I taught myself fairly early on to really listen to the script, so that even if the acting wasn't communicating to me, or I had issues with the set, or there was something that I at least was engaging with something, you know what I mean? That I was just hearing, even if it was just hearing the words. And so I find that I leave every show that I go to see, maybe not pumped up, maybe not feeling, you know, roused and, you know, enthusiastic, but that I got something out of it, you know, because otherwise, God, it just sucks your soul, you know? So see, you got to figure out a way to get something out of it. And I think, you know, and I teach my students to do this too. I mean, students tend to be very jaded theater students a lot of times, because they see a lot of theater. They've got a lot of jaded professors. And so, you know, like me sometimes. And so they go to theater and come out, you know, really being able to pick apart all its negatives, but not really being able to find the diamonds, you know, the good. And I think that that's an equal part of theater training, that you should be able to get past, you know, your own, you know, the things that rubbed you the wrong way and see something positive in it. So I try to practice that myself.
I think that has to do with the comment culture too. It seems like students are so, and especially with themselves too, they're so able to pick apart themselves of what the negative things are.
Yeah.
Mike and I are doing a thing right now, and one of our podcast questions was, what are you the best at? And it was really hard for them to answer it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So theater people are just as self-deprecating as jazz musicians?
I don't know about that. Let's not get crazy.
You know, that's the world that I live in most of the time, of just like, I'm not good enough. That gig kicked my ass. I got to learn. I got to get better. You know, and you know, it's part of the long game, because at a certain point, you know, you're doing things right, and you know you're getting calls back and all that. But that's a funny similarity potentially.
Yeah. No, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the arts world.
Yeah. Yeah. We're coming up on the 2-minute mark. I don't want to short anybody,
Wow.
but I want to give you all, I know this flew by. I'd very much like to do a follow-up maybe in a few months and do a theater too, and talk to you guys again, if everybody's game.
Okay.
But let's just go around. Let's take the corner to Mike, and we'll follow up with Dave, and then follow up with Greg. Let's just have everybody get about 30 seconds of just like pushing a project. Once again, tell us where people could find you, and just give us a nice hello, goodbye, encapsulated. So we'll start with Mike.
The easiest way to find me, find my work, is to just go to MikeWileyProductions.com. You'll see all the shows and where I'm going to be and all the social media stuff and everything.
Great. David?
Sure. I'm davidleewhite.net, and then alienatethemusical.wordpress.com. I hope I got that right. I write musicals with Kate Brennan, who's a composer and the AD of Ignition Arts, and just happens to be married to Greg. Greg has directed a couple of our workshops, and our first musical, Alienate, is being produced and being published and will be available for licensing very soon. And we're going to be working on the next two over the next few years. So looking forward to.
Gregory?
Yeah, the Infinity Trilogy is we just worked on the last one, which is Illuminate. If you go to ignitionarts.org, you can find a lot about our 20-year-old nonprofit theater company. And we just finished working on Illuminate over the summer and developed a new style of theater that we're calling Myriadrama. So we have a whole slew of videos on there that you can find out more about that project specifically. And GregoryDecandia.com for anything that I'm up to. And we're in the midst of developing a new podcast. Yes, I've retired one of my podcasts, Thank You 10, after 6 seasons. Is now concluded. It concluded in Oklahoma City. So now we're working on a brand new podcast that will be coming out very soon. So I can't say anything yet. Ignitionarts.org is where you can find it.
There you go. Gentlemen, before it cuts us off abruptly, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being here on Nerd Topic.